What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. For this next video, I'm going to briefly go into the major films that came out this past month, in the month of May. This is a long overdue. This is a long overdue video. Because obviously it's in mid-June. About mid-June about now. Today being June 11th, and, I haven't done this video yet until now. So, yeah, I'll be going into the movies in May, the major movies that came out in May, talk about them a little bit, do, what Rotten Tomatoes had on them, in terms of reviews that they had, and, stuff like that. So, without further ado, I'm going to get right into it. Starting out with one of the biggest movies of the year that came out May 1st. It, could very well end up being one of the biggest... it already is one of the biggest movies of all time. And it definitely will have... a battle with other movies, but still, this is one of the biggest. And that is Avengers Age of Ultron. I got the fortune to see it in theaters. I got the good fortune to go see it in theaters. And it was just everything and more that I hoped for in a movie. I loved Avengers Age of Ultron. I liked it better than the first Avengers movie, honestly. Although, that first Avengers movie got in the 90s for a percentage of, on Rotten Tomatoes. This one got a 74% rating, so lower than the first one, but you can watch my review on my channel here. I have a review of the movie on my channel. You can watch that, but basically it was everything I hoped for, and more. In this movie. I loved Avengers Age of Ultron. So, that was, and just to give you a little bit of context about how much money this movie made, first of all, the budget of this movie was a very expensive movie to make. $279.9 million. And you can understand it watching this movie. Watching a lot of the Marvel movies in general, because these movies are not made on shoestring budgets. It takes a lot of work and effort to put care into these movies and things like that. And because of that effort and care that Marvel puts into their movies, they're all so good. Anyway, that budget of $279.9 million. Then the box office total so far for Avengers Age of Ultron, because I don't think... it may not be out of theaters yet. I'm not sure. It's towards the tail end anyway. It came out May 1st, and today's June 11th, so... it's towards the tail end, but the box office total for it is $1.349 billion. That's a lot of money. That's a huge blockbuster movie. Now in April we got a blockbuster movie, Furious 7, which I actually watched recently. I thought it was really good. Furious 7, we got, that was really the first blockbuster movie this season. This movie season, and it came in April. May is where we're starting to see more of a blockbuster feel going on in, you're starting to, the next step towards the summer basically comes in May, essentially. May's kind of looked at as one of the big blockbuster movie months, basically. The start of something big. But it happened in April with Furious 7, and it continues in May with Avengers Age of Ultron. From a box office success to a box office bomb, a movie called Hot Pursuit came out May 8th. And the reason I mention this movie is because there's two viable stars in this movie, Reese Witherspoon and Sofia Vergara. You know, this movie, most of you have seen Avengers Age of Ultron, so you can watch my video on that to get my basic overview of the plot. But I have not watched Hot Pursuit yet. But this movie is about a cop played by Witherspoon, has to protect this drug lord's widow, played by Sofia Vergara. She has to protect her from ruthless criminals and things like that. That's basically the plot. Having said this, Hot Pursuit was a bomb. Right now, it made $34.8 million on a budget of $35 million, so it lost money. It definitely lost money. It was not a success. A lot of critics panned this movie. 7% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was absolutely a big bust. People didn't want to go see it. I mean, it made some money, but not the kind of money they were hoping for with those two bankable stars in the lead roles. You know, so Hot Pursuit was a big bust for the month of May, for sure, and for Warner Brothers / New Line Cinema / Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, who released the film. Going from Hot Pursuit to one of the more unusual films, and it's unusual in the way that its biggest star you would not think would be in this type of movie. This movie's Maggie. Maggie is a zombie movie, basically. It's a zombie horror movie. The star in the movie is Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a horror thriller movie. You would not think that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be a big star, or would even approach that type of movie. Because, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know him from The Terminator, you know him from, basically The Terminator's his biggest character, you know him from that, you know him from Predator, you know him from all those action-packed movies. He was one of the biggest stars of all time in the 80s and 90s. Not so much now, but he was then. But this type of movie is a good little departure. It definitely, how they describe it, first of all, is a post-apocalyptic drama film. Excuse me. In addition to Schwarzenegger, you have Abigail Breslin and Jolie Richardson in this movie. So basically, Schwarzenegger's daughter, played by Breslin, gets infected by zombies. I think is the nature of the plot. She gets infected by zombies or something like that, and, he has to try to rescue her. That's basically what the plot is, I believe. And overall, 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's not bad. It wasn't a bad rating at all, And overall, actually, it hasn't made money. Seeing the box office totals, it really did not make any money at all. $4.5 million, $182.874 for a box office total on a budget of $4.5 million. So clearly, I see it didn't make the money. But yeah, it's notable for a different type of role from Arnold Schwarzenegger, for sure. And that's why I wanted to mention it among the movies, the big movies. One of the other big movies is a part of a franchise, a long-lasting franchise that had 3 movies way back in the day. It took a while to make this movie, but when it came out, there was a lot of love towards this film, Mad Max Fury Road. Can't go without talking about this one because it was a huge success. It is the fourth one in the series. It's the first one not starring Mel Gibson. Tom Hardy now stars as Mad Max. Tom Hardy's considered one of the best actors of our generation, of right now. Charlize Theron is in this movie. Rosie Huntington Whiteley, who is the girlfriend of Jason Statham. And more, basically. But yeah, this is... Mad Max is sort of that post-apocalyptic... It's a post-apocalyptic action film. And it did well. $150 million budget, $315.8 million thus far, and it's still out in theaters. It came out May 15th in the United States. And overall, according to Rotten Tomatoes, first off, gave it a 98% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's unbelievable. That's really, really good. So this movie got widespread critical acclaim, and it's making money as well. And it is one of the big movies in May, for sure. From that movie, we go to a completely different movie. A comedy musical. A sequel to a comedy musical that was a surprise hit. Pitch Perfect 2. This one stars Anna Kendrick. Anna Kendrick comes back from the first movie. Rebel Wilson. Elizabeth Banks is in the movie. Haley Steinfeld appears for the first time. She didn't appear in the first movie, I don't believe. But yeah, Pitch Perfect 2. It continues the story from Pitch Perfect 1. There's new stakes to be had in this one. On a budget of $29 million, it made $250.8 million. That's unbelievable. That's a lot of money. Interesting fact, it is the highest grossing musical comedy film, which overtook the Jack Black comedy School of Rock, which made $131.3 million. And, this one was just a huge success. As far as critical reception, 66% on Rotten Tomatoes, that is not bad at all. It really isn't. I think it was a lower percentage than the first one, but still, it was a very good sequel, and now, definitely, actually, we're going to get a Pitch Perfect 3. It just came out yesterday that there's going to be a Pitch Perfect 3. So, await that, basically, definitely. Which will probably be coming out in a couple of years or so. Let's see here. Now going from that to a completely different movie, a horror movie, a remake of a classic horror movie, is the movie Poltergeist, starring Sam Rockwell in the lead role. Poltergeist is about a bad clown, I guess, something like that. I never did see the first movie at all, the original movie. But yeah, this movie is a remake, and you typically get remakes that do turn out to be... You sometimes get occasional remakes that turn out to be as good or better than the originals, but mostly the remakes are worse than the originals. And in the case of Poltergeist, it was worse than the original. It came out May 22nd. On a budget of $62 million, it only made $52.9 million at the box office. So it was a box office bomb. They labeled that movie as a box office bomb. Critical reception, 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a great review, according to Rotten Tomatoes. So this movie just was a miss, basically, like Hot Pursuit in the month of May. Still some more movies to talk about. One of the most anticipated movies of the year, one of the biggest stars appeared in this movie, Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland stars one of the biggest stars in Hollywood right now, George Clooney. By the way, I gotta do a video on George Clooney at some point, an about video on George Clooney. I can't believe I haven't done one already on him. But yeah, George Clooney stars in this movie. Hugh Laurie, you might know him as Dr. House on the show House, the TV show House. Britt Robertson, who I think when I kind of saw her at first, I thought she looked like a young Renee Zellweger, actually. She's another one I got to do a video on, by the way. But Britt Robertson is in this movie. She's an up-and-coming star. She was in a movie... Actually, I think I may have talked about this movie a couple months ago. That Nicholas Sparks movie, The Best of Me, or something like that. But anyway, she's in this movie. Tim McGraw, the country star, is in this movie. And came out May 22nd. And it just didn't do... This movie just didn't do what Disney was hoping it would do. I mean, it's been okay, but a lot of mixed reviews. So far, it has a budget of $190 million. And it's only made $170 million thus far. It's still in theaters, and it'll probably go over $190 million. But it's not going to go over too much, probably. You know? So this movie was sort of a disappointment to Disney. You know, performing with below expectations at the box office, and critically, this movie got a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. Right down the middle, basically. Half the rating of 100%. You know, 50%. It is rotten. That is a rotten review, I believe, according to Rotten Tomatoes. But yeah, this movie just underperformed. There were its fans, but there were fans of it, but there were also people who probably didn't like it very much. The next movie I'm going to be talking about is a romantic comedy drama film, which has some of the biggest stars in Hollywood right now. And that movie, and it's directed by a guy who has made some great movies in the past. Cameron Crowe directed Aloha. This movie came out just recently. May 29th, actually. So it came out at the end of May, basically. This one was also a box office bomb. On a budget of $37 million, it made $16.7 million. So it did not do well at all. When you thought, I mean, I thought looking at the trailers for this movie that it was going to be better, that it was going to do better, even though I wasn't interested in seeing it in theaters. I still thought this movie was going to perform. Unfortunately, though, this movie did not perform. Critically, 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's just not... It just wasn't a success at all. And there was a little bit of controversy over... Now, this movie stars Bradley Cooper, Emma Stone, Rachel McAdams, Bill Murray, Alec Baldwin, Danny McBride. It has a huge cast. Huge cast. However, there is controversy over the casting of Emma Stone, because the character that Emma Stone was playing was meant to be 1/4 Chinese and 1/4 Hawaiian descent. Emma Stone is neither of those. So you can see the controversy for sure. But yeah, Aloha just did not perform well. And it was just a big disappointment overall. And then the last movie to talk about, the final movie, ended May off on a good note money-wise. It really did. you know, that movie was a disaster film, 3D disaster film, and that was the movie San Andreas. The last movie I'm going to be talking about this month, for this month. It came out May 29th, same day as Aloha did, worldwide, you know, in the United States. So far, so good for this movie. On a $110 million budget, it made $292.6 million, and it's still out in theaters, so it'll still make more money. It got mixed reviews from critics, but it made a lot of money because it's a big film. Literally, a big film in scope. This talks about the San Andreas earthquake that occurred, let me see here. So this basically is about an earthquake occurring in San Andreas, in California, I believe. But yeah, this movie was a big success, and in terms of critics, 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it definitely got mixed reviews, but it made a lot of money. Period. Made a lot of money. And it was just a big success overall. And that's it for my talk about the May movies, the major May movies that came out. Looking into June, you have a lot of movies that look interesting. I'm not going to do any reviews on these movies at all, or I'm just going to talk about some of them that look exciting. One that's out right now in theaters is Entourage, after the HBO TV show. Insidious Chapter 3, which is definitely, it's a horror film. It's the third in the series. Chapter 3, it's a prequel, actually. Love and Mercy, a story about Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. Spy, the Melissa McCarthy comedy. Jurassic World, which is coming out tomorrow. Let's see. Inside Out, the new Pixar movie. Ted 2, a movie the most anticipated movie for me in June. And that's pretty much the movies in June overall. So that is it for my video on the major May movies and the review of them. So that's it for that. D-Rock 1992 out.